Welcome. I'm Al Johns, or Alvin Johns. Jerry DiTilio and I were captains of the 1970 Chomedey Chiefs senior football team that captured the Montreal Championship 50 years ago. I'm producing this video along with the help from Jerry, Alistair Taylor, Tony Grice, Lloyd Johns, Myra Schuster, Rick Crowley, Bob and Keith Davey, and my lovely wife Carol Ann and my daughter Amanda. The purpose of the video is to celebrate the 50th anniversary of the championship, and it's our way of communicating to the players and fans during this special 2020 pandemic year. Jerry would like to say a few words.
Hi, this is Jerry DiTilio, former member of the Chomedey Chiefs football team, city champions 1970. In my opinion, the greatest football team our high school football team to ever come out of Montreal and out of Chomedey. I'm a little biased, but when you average 50 points a game, you're doing something right. I just want to say thank you to all the players, coaches, managers that were involved with the team back in 1970. I tell you, it was a magical year. I think of this quite often. It's probably one of the best times of my life, and that includes the times I played pro. It really did. And one of the plays that you'll see on the video that you're going to get is that punt return we had playing against Lachine in the semifinals. The winner of that game went to play St. Thomas. Anyway, you know what the stickler was for Coach Bailey was for special teams. Anyway, I just remember that play. All the great blocking we had. I was running around the corner. All of a sudden, I was there one-on-one with Keith Hayes. Made a move on him. We ended up scoring a touchdown. But to this day, I just can't get over how well that punt return team was. They did just a great job. And I'll keep this short and sweet. Again, thanks for everyone, especially the people, Julie LaFlock, Valerie, Doug Paul was our manager, and especially Carl Binder, who's no longer with us, which is very sad. And hopefully I'll be able to see you guys, hopefully with this COVID thing, if it gets over. I'll see you in hopefully June at the reunion. I know we were supposed to have one this past June, but because of COVID, we couldn't do it. So anyway, talk to you soon, hopefully next year. And again, it's a special day tomorrow, 50 years since we won the city championship. Thank you very much. Bye.
You're right, Jerry. 1970 was a magical time both on and off the field. The video is based upon a booklet created by 4 very talented and energetic public relations members on the team. They are Carl Binder, Valerie Scott, Howard Spungen, and Judy LaFlock. As you will see from the video, what they created was a masterpiece. It is hard to believe that as seniors in high school, they produced something most professionals would have a difficult time doing. Also, remember that in 1970, there were no computers, no digital pictures, and a photocopy machine was fairly new. We would like to dedicate this video to the coaches who are no longer with us, the players, our fans, and last but not least, our parents. In addition to the booklet, we have video clips from the 1970 football games between Lachine in the semifinals and a championship game against St. Thomas. I also incorporated clips of Coach Bailey from the 1990 reunion. The coach talks about his memories during the 68 to 71 period. The first clip is about how we arrived at the name for the school.
A couple more. One thing here that I don't have my Alvin's already talked about it. It's the time that got together to make the team. I guess it came about by the fact that when St. Paul and another name and that kind of thing. Anyway, we got together in Ken Dalton's electrical shop. And I'm sure that most came with the cafeteria, probably with the lunch hour. And we started to decide on what would be the name. And one of them was the Chiefs. And I had heard, and somebody had told me that the job had a little bit of Indian in it. And I don't know But that seemed the dog seemed to symbolize the strength of the team, and all without a matter. And 20 years later, that name is still the name of the team in Chomedey High. Although it's a sad thing that the sports have almost disappeared. But they're still there. In fact, I think even the girls use the term Chiefs as their name. And I'll bet you that there's not one person in Chomedey I know. They will know, but they probably don't know. I don't know if anybody, not even the principal, knows how that name came about unless they all.
The booklet begins with a message from Principal Ron Sharp, read by Tony Grice at the 1990 reunion. Tony is the stepson to Ron and a former Chomedey Chief player in the 1969 team.
But he said, may I, on behalf of the faculty and students of our school community, extend our heartiest congratulations to the players and coaches of our championship football teams. While the rewards of winning a championship are immediately obvious and enjoyed by the players, the more intrinsic rewards of this experience are yet to be deeply appreciated and recognized in the years ahead. Championship teams are built on the personal sacrifices made by both players and coaches and can truly be understood only by those who are closely associated with the team. In all cases, special commendation must be extended to those teachers who so freely and willingly gave their free time to coach, as well as those members of the athletic department who volunteer their valuable support service. Football traditions have now been firmly established in Chomedey. Players that follow the years to come will be challenged and extended to their utmost by the standards set by those that preceded them. It is not the size of the dog in the fight is the size of the dog. R.D. Ron Sharp. And I think that's pretty good letter.
This is a picture of Ron in 2005. He's in the middle, and Tony is on the left of the screen. This is a great page to include in a booklet. The coaches encouraged us to play hard and play fair. Some of the words drilled into us were devotion, ambition, strength, pride, sacrifice, and leadership, think, ability, achievement. The players had character and believed in teamwork. We had fun, but we also had the strong desire to be the best. I like the next section of the book. It recognizes the teams leading up to the 1970 team. The first team that we see in the booklet is the 1964 senior team. A couple of players I recognize is Tim Noseworthy and Dave Colcher. Both players had their dad playing with the Alouettes in the 50s. The other player is Ian McCauley. He's the big brother of Peter, who played with us on the 69 and 70 team. I remember going to Peter's house on our bike in elementary school and seeing Ian. He looked huge, but is one of the smaller players on the team. You'll notice that this is the only picture that you will see Coach Bailey without a beard. Next are some of the stars on the 1965 team. The 65 team won the Northeast Division and went to the final only to lose a very close game to Wager. At quarterback, we have Malcolm Holsberg with Jerry Turner as center. We have a young Grant Bingham as quarterback and Phil Seligman as halfback. We have two speedy halfbacks, Mike Bernstein and Joe Seltzer. The final picture is one of the best receivers that played, Bob Davey. I want to do a shout out to the Davey family. They're one of the most talented athletic families that went to Chomedey. We have Bob. Dorothy was our age, and Dorothy excelled in all sports. She was the 1971 Female Athlete of the Year. Then we have Ken, who followed in Bob's footsteps to be an outstanding receiver and defensive halfback. He was on the junior team that captured the championship in 1970. The next team is the 1968 team, a rebuilding year. Only 4 returning players. The rest were not only rookies, but first-time players. At least 50% of the team were juniors. I can't imagine the challenge the coaches had to prepare the team. We started off with a few losses, but came on strong at the end of the season, winning 4 of our last 7 games. A great learning experience for us juniors. Some of the stars on the team were Alistair Taylor, first year playing as a flanker and middle linebacker. Alistair was a key player in 1969 and went on to play amateur football for another 15 years. Our outstanding quarterback and most valuable player was Sam Weisbach. He was incredible, always a smile and a lot of patience for us rookies. I went on to enjoy a couple of years at Sir George playing with Sam on the Georgians. Our most valuable lineman was Ron Allman. He was awesome. He must have loved going against us rookies in Lover's Lane. I know I wasn't much of a match against him. I believe the 1968 team really sealed the fate of our junior and senior teams for the next 2 years. The next team is 1969. We had an outstanding year, only to lose to St. Thomas in the final minute of the semifinal game. The team had a lot of heart. I remember the sadness in the dressing room after the game. An incredible group. We came together and fielded a very competitive team. Lots of first-year players, including yourself, Jerry. The team consisted of only 25 players, with many having to play both offense and defense. I remember recruiting Norm Juror along the way to school one morning. He stuck it out for 2 years. One of my lasting memories was when there was an unusual hitting practice one Saturday late in the season. Loboson complained of a sore arm, Coach Roberts telling him to suck it up. Monday morning, Loboson comes to school with a cast on his broken arm. He still had the cast on it for our team pictures. We have pictures of some of the players. Dave Donaldson was a two-way player, playing both offense and defense. He was also one of the fierce headhunters. We had Tony Grice, a senior who joined the team in a defensive halfback position. In his final game, he had an interception. We were talking about the game a few days later. He mentioned after he caught the ball, the lights went out, everything went black. He just held onto the ball with both hands and ran forward. A great play. Next, we have Michel Gauette. I love this picture. What a build, and always joking around. Some of the awards that year went to Michel Gauette as the most valuable lineman. Coach Bailey was so impressed the way he handled Larry Titley during the St. Thomas game. Larry, for your information, went on to play professional football for the next 10 years. Carl Binder received a well-deserved leadership award. Howard Spungen was the most improved player. It was unbelievable how Howard took on the center position. I was the most valuable player that year. This is a joke picture. I never played quarterback, and Leon was never center, but it's a good-looking picture. In 1969, the coaches introduced a headhunter group. I have Alistair Taylor, a first-year headhunter, and a star member of the 1969 team.
The headhunter is fearless and tough. He enjoys physical contact more than the glories of a touchdown. He is a symbol for Chomedey High football and a model for the other players. News reports play up his exploits. The axe symbol flashes across an action photo. The opposition trembles. Through action, he leads his team to victory.
The headhunters in 1969 were Alvin Johns, Alistair Taylor, David Donaldson, Michel Gauette, and Jerry DiTilio. The 1970 headhunters increased from 5 to 7. They were Peter Costanzas, Frank Dunn, Jerry DiTilio, Lenny Rapps, Alvin Johns, Leon Caron, and Lloyd Johns. Before we move on to the 1970 team, Coach Bailey talked about the players and the team in the 1990 reunion that I'd like to share with you.
I just must have been 68, may have been 69. But it was when Dave Donaldson needed, as far as I was concerned. Dave was a slim person when he grew up.
I never knew him that way. Hey, what happened?
all of a sudden we had some kind of a drill down by the goal line, and God, all of a sudden I could hear a crack. And Dave,
That was Alvin running you over.
no, well, you doing your job, and as far as I'm concerned, that's when you made it. Another point that somebody made was we're watching game films. One of those game films. I think this must have been 68. It could have been 69. But Howard, were you there in 68? So I think it was 68. And we were going over the game film, and you know the game films are there for two reasons. One is to teach something, to show your mistakes, but also it's to motivate the factor. Well, all of a sudden, Howard comes out of the center position, and he knocks this guy back 6 yards. And I pointed it out. And Howard hadn't done this up to that point, so he must have been 68. And everybody saw that Howard had it. And I knew it. He knew it. And his career was off. That's the way I remember it. The other one, the next thing I remember was, remember when Lenny Matz came up? He was about two weeks late. And Lenny was a big, impressive looking guy that I guess honestly thought that he would already made a team. So in order to put him through the mill, we put him through what we call a tough drill. And we had guys like Alvin and I can't remember who the other guys were, Leon Carroll and W. Nevinson, et cetera. And it was a drill which really tested him for about 10 minutes of hard hitting. And Lenny stopped, and he made the team right there. We were really quite vividly. It was 69. We were playing St. Thomas, which has been brought up 8 times. And personally, I would say the St. Thomas game was the highlight of my high school football career, maybe the highlight of my whole career. Because we had a team which hadn't really proven themselves in the big leagues yet. We had won our league, we thrashed our opposition, all three, etc. But we hadn't really been able to test ourselves against a good team, a championship team. I remember Chuck Frankel asking me a couple of days before, can we win? This didn't go. I said, sure. Well, I remember when I took you down into the wrestling, which is the old wrestling area. We had a meeting. And I spent, I'm sure, half an hour propagandizing about everything, every advantage you had. And we did have some advantage. And boy, I'll tell you, that game was, to me, a super football game that really proved that you guys had it. We lost, sure, but it was so fun.
This now brings us to the 1970 City Championship team. We were a loaded team. We had 8 players returning from the 1969 senior team, plus we had last year's juniors, and we picked up a few new players. Our offensive line was very talented. We had the juniors on the right and the returning seniors on the left. 3 of the linemen were headhunters, Peter Casanzas, Lenny, and Leon. We don't have the stats, but I doubt we had many quarterback sacks against us. We added speed with our wing backs and ends. On the right side, we had Byron and Izzy. On the left side, we had Frank and Lloyd, both of whom were headhunters. Billy Chapman joined us in the backfield, and of course, you had a year of experience under your belt. You had an incredible season, Jerry. Here are some of the stats. We were undefeated. We averaged over 50 points a game. We had only 29 points scored against us the whole season. You led the league with 113 points, and that's not including our last game against Dunton. It's good to see that our defensive players scored some points. We finished first in our division. we played Lachine in the semifinals. A few comments I have about the Lachine game. We were so hyped for that game, not a single word was said on the bus. I remember coming off the bus, running to the end zones. We did our warm-ups. We basically shook the building. Coach Bailey prepared us for the game. He identified Keith Hayes as being the fastest guy in the league and a potential game breaker. He didn't last too long in the game. Unfortunate for him, during their first possession, Keith got the ball doing an end run on our side. I tackled him low, you tackled him high. A clean hit. He was helped off the field. Lachine didn't have the same caliber of lineman as we had to block for him. We coasted to an easy victory and a match against our arch rival St. Thomas on the 14th. Here are some highlights of the game.
All the great blocking we had, I was running around the corner. All of a sudden, I was there one-on-one with Keith Hayes, made a move on him. We ended up scoring a touchdown. But to this day, I just can't get over how well that punt return team was. They did just a great job.
I do like that run, Jerry. You really deked the heck out of Hayes. I like this play as well. Lloyd does a great job taking the outside halfback there. Allows Jerry to make the turn and get a touchdown. We also had some pretty good gang tackling there. They didn't get too many yards during that game. Love the support you guys had on the sidelines with the Gold Chiefs to go. And Coach Bailey at the in action. Another great sign. And we had the pressure on the quarterback the whole game. I'm not quite sure how many quarterback sacks we have. I love this Peter Costanzas just plows people over to get to the quarterback. What a hit. Scotty Buchanan just has a clear shot at the quarterback here. And we got some good running plays here. And Jerry was the master in terms of fake handoff. Believe it or not, Jerry has the ball here, making the turn around the corner. And Billy was very good up the middle, and also good on the outside. He had the speed. And I like this play here. It only takes 6 players from Lachine to take me down. Another one here. We get a touchdown on this one. And I couldn't do a backward somersault today if I tried. Got a touchdown. And I love Ralph and his little dancing in the backfield. Well, we won the game. Jerry deserves the carrying. Some Ralph and Byron on the sidelines. Lloyd and Jerry again. So we're off to the finals.
I remember in 69, both 69 and 70, arriving at Lachine to play them. Again, they were sort of an arch rival at the sort of end of the season. And Ken mentioned the bus. The bus situation is very important. You guys were as quiet and contemplating as you could possibly. Obviously, an environment had been set for you. That you guys were more mature in many ways than some of the professional teams that I played in that sense. Anyway, what I remember in Lachine was you get off the bus. I wouldn't have to say anything. Alvin and Jerry take you over. You knew exactly where to go. You knew exactly what to do. And you warmed up, and boy, did you guys look sharp. Not only at the machine, but everywhere you went, you intimidated your opposition. Just by the way you behaved. That is really something that I remember. And you watch, some teams today, you no wonder.
Going back, we started the season playing St. Thomas for the Lou Irving Memorial Trophy in an exhibition game. We ended up beating them by 21-0. A couple of weeks later, we headed off to Moncton for an exhibition game against Riverview High. What a trip that was. We took the overnight train and ended up playing the game in the afternoon on the day of arrival. Coach Bailey remembers the experience. Listen to what he has to say.
The Moncton game has been mentioned. rode the train right down, and the train went back. And the crying girls at the train. I can remember that. But you know the thing that I remember the most, that makes the most difference with you guys, you went on the train, half of you got a little bit of sleep. I imagine. We got off the train, and what we do, we went to practice. Right from the train, we went to practice. We went to school, we went to practice, and you know, they had to play that afternoon. We had a game, we arrived, I don't know, around 8 in the morning, let's say. We had a game in the afternoon at 2, and we went to practice before, and there was no complaints. The reason for that, of course, is to get loosened up, or get your mind directed the other way, and I think we ended up winning 35-5.
41-1.
No, not nothing. That's the same problem.
Or whatever, it was a white
I don't think it.
Well, we partied after that though.
Our teams are great. That team that we beat went on 2 days later and beat the next team by almost 100 points.
That's right. We all went down to see the game, and they had over 255 pounds in that thing down.
We ended the season and our last game together for the city championship 50 years ago on November the 14th. St. Thomas wasn't much of a challenge that day, winning the game 41-1. More about the game in the next section on Vintage 70 by Howard Spungen. The awards for 1970 went to Peter Costanzas as the most valuable lineman. Peter McCauley was the most improved player. He had very big shoes to step into when Howard didn't come back to play. Jerry, you received the most valuable player. Well deserved. You had an awesome season. We have Coach Bailey with some additional comments about the season.
You were a special group. When you went out on that field, I remember playing Dutton, my God, it was like a machine up there. And you would get, you know, they'd kick once, and we'd line up, and you'd set up your blocking, you'd mow them down, and you'd touch them. Imagine this, Ken mentioned away game. When we would come back after a game, and we won all those games, the bus would approach Hartsville Bridge from over to Chomedey Boulevard. And when the kids saw the school, they actually cheered. Now, how many private school kids would actually cheer when they see that no, this is something I remember. And that, to me, meant something. That high school really meant something to you guys.
This next section is an introductory to the players on the team, and we're doing it via a poem called Vintage 70, which was written by Howard Spungen and is read by his son, Jonah Spungen. Enjoy.
The poetry that followeth, I do pray, shall adorn the posterior end of each of you like an up and rising thorn. Vintage 70. It happened in November, as the 14th moon prepared to witness the Chiefs whoop it up to climax a victory pair. 'Twas a sorta chilly morning as each player reviewed his act. Joel Morris poked his nose outside and freezingly, "We gotta play in that?" Well, they didn't chicken from the cold. Turning yellow wouldn't do. They saw green sweaters on the field and vowed to turn them black and blue. But one little problem did occur as Scotty hit the scene. Soberly, he said to the guys, "But I like the color green." Well, this can irk a Karen some when you side with the enemy. But Scotty quickly changed his mind as Leon revved his 63. Jostling and clasping their shoulder pads were the Petes, Lennys, and Norms. Their hips, their thighs, and knock knees covered and cleats on their corns. Then tough and tumble Chomedey ran out onto the turf, like irritated bulls kicking up the muddy earth. Surely St. Thomas must have had a hearty laugh, watching Frank stumble like a three-legged calf. And with the Frenchman accent the Ralph speak for sure to go at. Let's go out and hit those guys. We beat them good, you bet. It was great watching the guys out there on the field as the fellows in green were painfully killed. But not all the gruesome details of torture were inflicted with effortless ease. Sometimes the anger of a wreathing tornado can become just a yawn of breeze. Go out and get that guy with the ball. So Naki runs, then trips and falls. He was told to scramble, to go out and cream him. It's not his fault he couldn't see him. Now Naki, next time you gotta play, think of the team and be fair. We realize that spectacles are your desire. Now Izzy would lend you his broken taped pair. Until Lenny P, we all decree and award the fickle finger of fate. He returned to battle to get his revenge when Coach Roberts fixed his finger hinge, for he said, "Coach, Lipinski don't wait." The guys in the backfield were having their problems every time they hit the line of scrimmage. It wasn't exactly the guys in green, but the guys in white that were ruining the image. Instead of engine number 9, the 807 was really flying. Once like a bull, because he was hit with a stone, he charged the line like an angry cyclone. After the play, 15 yards later, Alvin turned and angrily cried, nostrils wide and burning pride, "Who's guilty?" But every soul in white denied. If only one player on our team would score, it wouldn't be bad, except we had many, and more. Right from the engine to the fighting tail end, we had more punch than any liquor could rend. The frustrated green were calling for a noose. They wanted to hang our little caboose. For whenever they saw Bill with the ball, they cried it would be fair if only he'd crawl. Calling the powwows out on the field, our centers are tough, not an inch do they yield. Resisting all, they call the huddle. "Quiet, Detilio, now get in the puddle." After the break, while the signals were hollered, Frank jeered at the end and bet an easy $1. Jerry veered behind the line, anything but stark. Our wingback turned the corner. Jerry passed when Byron barked. But Byron had his fingers buttered. The ball just slipped right through. Jerry cocked his head and said, "I told him to use glue." But the problems for our quarterback always did exist, like bawling out Castanis for all the blocks he missed. But Headhunter Pete did not like defeat. "St. Thomas, get out of my way. Either let me through or I'm busting you." They didn't have very much say. Robert cringed and looked away. Joel buried his head in the mud. Eric looked stunned but stared with glee. "Wow, look at all that blood." They pitied the poor guys wearing the green as forearms cracked them down. Castanis, Raps, and Leon were busy maliciously bruising them to the ground. Suddenly the gun went off. Lloyd leapt in the air insane. That was the hardest thing he did since the very start of the game. "Slap me 5" was the call as all jumped on one another with glee. The hardest hitting of the day was done in that moment of ecstasy. The guys tried to shoulder the coaches, a stubborn battle against inertia. The closest thing that they accomplished was a case of double hernia. Only one coach was able to hit the upper atmosphere. Mr. Donaldson was up with a single hand and a simple cheer. The trophy was brought out and given to the team. All the guys tried to act in the 30-second scene. A picture was taken for the winners of the clash when Wally yelled, "Hold it! You missed my mustache!" Dirty, sweaty, and stripping boys pounded into the dressing room. The noise erupting from within the walls gave competition to the sonic boom. Among the champagne and chocolate cake, war whoops stung the ears, sweat rolled in the dust. The Chiefs drowned themselves in lust, and someone sent out for beer. In the meantime, everyone reached and grabbed for the effervescent wine, the stuff that helps one celebrate and makes one's spirits climb. "Yuck, man, this is terrible stuff," and take it from a guy who had more than enough. "But man, it's great," whooped Norman O. "Maybe next year I'll give it another go." But Norman wasn't the only one who boldly downed a guzzle. Coaches or not, George was wrought as he poured it through his muzzle. Why, Raps was ecstatic. His nose was aglow. A dressing room joke, and he started the show. Wally cracked up and half rolled on the floor. Another Raps special. Walt cracked up some more. And there was Houghton, open full throttle, smacking his lips and hitting the bottle. The odd air bubble filtered his nose. His bloodshot eyes tickled his toes. Mr. D lit his peace pipe and stroked his Van Dyke chin. Overcome, he clicked his muckluck heels and joined in the hollering din. Flash was sloshed out of his mind, kissed the trophy, swooned, then pined. Our speed demon of the kitty cars settled down and sang a few bars. As the blues eked out and choked in the air, Grievous sipped champagne as it dripped from his hair. Billy's face began to wilt. Peter moaned and buried his face in his kilt. Jerry's face was a platinum silk. We'd be damned to know where he got his milk. Then suddenly a thunderous roar boomed and pounded, then shook once more. The laughter dimmed out and old John looked lost. He bellowed, "Who's got my jelly tots?" Well, buddy, how the place went wild. That guy can sure crack a joke. Then Corber tried, and the guys almost died. His fell like a beaded egg yolk. Stripping down to his yellow shorts, Dougie yelled out, "Where are the quarts?" But to his dismay, only pints were left some. Ralph saved the day, deftly slipping him one. And then the presentation came. The guys clammed up, the squalor tamed. Macaulay not a minute to stall, from the Chiefs to the biggest chief of all. And there in his hands Pete flashed a prize, a feathered headdress that caught all eyes. Mr. Bailey, his plumage donned, looked about at his braves, winners all along. Instantly a whooping cheer, all in accordance to soak him in beer, for all the champagne was long gone. 'Twas odd to see our Mr. Bailey without his faithful toque. Most of the guys who saw the disguise had to take a second look. He thanked the boys with exalted pride and stood with his feather decor. "Okay, boys, I'll have a swig." But alas, there was no more. The guys were singing and living it up, and they drank each bottle to the very last drop. As the firewater trickled right, the guys discovered what was meant by drip dry. Colors flared, civvies knotted the scene. Getting dressed was a bother to Pinsky, slipping green. Purple, orange, and sky blue rang. Frank's pink got the longest stare. But all continued getting dressed, for this was only their underwear. The steam was lifting from the showers. Throats were sore, no one could yell louder. Then Phil's announcement was happily heard. "The bus is here! Our thirst can be cured!" Then, as they trampled out the door to get to their favorite brewer, an excruciating ouch was heard as someone stepped on Jewer. Hidden there among the debris, scattered on the floor, nobody could see the little fella as they stampeded out the door. But as the guys piled into the bus and fought for a choice of seat, Manager Doug was cleaning up, and that alone was another feat. Towels were strewn amongst the benches, socks still stained the air, champagne drippings on the floor, and a tear from the only squaw there. The only girl on our team, our private PRG, cried quietly in the halls, ignoring her fame of ubiquity. Valerie, our most ardent fan, didn't let her warmth Peter. She braved the cold like no man can. That's why they call her the heater. And we mustn't forget another fan who was also hot and burning. Stuck at home all red in bed, Carl's fever was busy curing. Returning home, we used the phone to tell him we had won. A sudden snarl. It was Carl. I knew it all along. A lot of things happened by winning that game. The start of a very long Chomedey reign. The pride of knowing St. Tommy was beat, and Izzy went back to watching Sesame Street. One could just see the pride of the players as they skipped along the halls and bounced down the stairs. One looked out for Phil as he straddled the railing. Eric knows, for he was sent sailing. George looked puzzled. Leon's mind grew damp. Greg doubtfully asked, "Are we really the champs?" All the guys knew that they must crack the books, but between all the pages the girls got looks. How could Brian study math all the time when all the girls round had programs to sign? So off they went to scribble their names, each guy just a little insane with fame. Injun wrote Sir Lloyd W.B. on any program that he could see. Judy stared at Pete furiously as he signed another girl's Sir Andrew MIP. During off-season, some tackled a mat. Others said that they were through. Some ended up bouncing balls or pucks, and one said, "Pooh bah to you." 'Twas a dismal day. The snow was light. The tribe was sitting in the calf. Most of us had nothing to say. Some were trying to dig up a laugh. Sleepy-eyed Gordy was dreaming of a bike, while Scotty looked puzzled. "I've no girl to fight." Alvin pondered, then recalled the time he was hit with a stone last season. A muffled giggle, the fatal sign. To laugh, we had good reason. Alvin yelled and Nethersoul wailed. We all realized just who threw it. I didn't mean it, Dougie quailed. The devil made me do it.
Jonah, this is remarkable to have a father and son team presenting this poem. Your dad wrote this poem. It's priceless, a lasting memory to all who were on the team. You made this extra special. Jonah is a classical singer. When the pandemic is over, he will be performing in the Toronto area. I hope to see him sing someday. Thank you once again. Before moving on, Coach Bailey made some comments about the poem at the reunion. Here it is.
I also remember after the 70 season the amount of work that Carl and Howard and Val and Judy did, all behind the scenes, secret. Nobody knew what was going on. And it was in my office. In fact, I have a picture of it. And it's kind of off my office. That is something I remember. The experience which I remember was when the year was over, we won a championship, and we had a group setting up a tremendous award night, and then Howard got up and read that poem. That, to me, is something I'll never forget. Interesting memory was after the final win in the Dunn Stadium, in the dressing room, when Peter McCauley handed me that headdress. I'll never forget that. And I look at the headdress, it's up here. It's a little bit brown now. I wonder whether he has some help making that or not, but it's well made. It's really an interesting piece of work, and I really treasure that piece. I don't think I've ever really thanked him for that. But that's been up in my study for 20 years. Got a little dusty at times.
I remember being in Coach Bailey's office a week after the game, and he was beaming. He received a memo from one of his peers, a highly respected peer, and he read it to me. And this is what it said. Please accept our heartiest congratulations on your football championship. Undoubtedly, that team would take its place alongside some of the great championship teams of the past. In particular, I suppose, some of those great Roy Chesley teams at West Hill, D.W. Wood, Lower Canada College. One of the highest rewards you can get in your life is being recognized by your peers. So Coach Bailey was very, very proud of this memo. On the next page of the booklet is a message from the coaches, and it's read by Lloyd Johns.
The winning attitude is still important. Winning results from excellence, and excellence results from devotion, sacrifice, and yes, hard work. Old values which obviously you must feel are still worthwhile. However, of all the values you gained out of football, possibly the most important is the experience itself. Those long punt returns, the crushing blocks, the gang tackling, Lover's Lane, the Moncton trip, tense bus trips, dressing room antics, comradeship, beating St. Thomas, and being the best. They will not be forgotten. It has been a great year for you and us. The challenge for the coaches was not so much in winning the games, that was too easy, but in striving to teach the players to reach their potential as individuals and as a team. The school has gained from your efforts and success. The model you have set will motivate our teams of the future. We hope you can develop the same type of commitment towards your life goals. Signed, KJ Donaldson, J.A. Roberts, R.J. Bailey.
Thank you, Lloyd. The coaches meant so much to us. They were our inspiration. I don't know how they did it, year after year, training new players. They loved the sport, and we loved playing for them. We were so fortunate to attend Chomedey with the diversity of students and teachers, the strong athletic program, and I guess the academic classes were good. We were good students as football players, never having to challenge the teachers academically. We do have a number of Chomedey Chiefs from the 1969-70 team that have left us much too early. I would like to recognize their contribution, thank them for being part of our lives, and to pass on our sympathies to the families and friends. The coaches and the players that have left us are Coach Bailey, Coach Roberts, Coach Donaldson, our manager and friend Carl Binder, our halfback in 70, Bill Chapman, our cornerback in 70, Scott Buchanan, our center and most improved player in 1970, Peter McCauley, our center, most improved player in 1969 and poet, Howard Spungen, our tackle and most valuable lineman in 69, Michel Gouet. May you rest in peace. Next, I have a message from Myra Schuster regarding a tribute to Ray Bailey.
After Ray Bailey died in May 2015, a number of teachers who had been his colleagues and those of us who had been his students wanted to create a tribute in his name. At the initiative of the late Gary Thomas, who had been a close colleague and close friend of Ray Bailey's, we obtained approval from the Sir Wilfrid Laurier School Board officials to hold an evening of tribute and to set up a display case in Ray Bailey's memory. Half of the display case is devoted to Chiefs' achievements and memorabilia and tributes to Ray Bailey as Coach Bailey, and half of the display case is devoted to the mark that Ray Bailey made as a leading-edge pedagogue. All the photos and videos of the event are posted at the Remembering Ray Bailey Facebook page.
I would like to conclude the video with two occasions after graduating from Chomedey that I would like to share. In December of 1978, four of us got together at Alistair's parents' place. Alistair was playing amateur ball in Toronto. Howard was finishing up his career with McGill as captain and playing for Charlie and Ray Bailey. Jerry was playing for the Calgary Stampeders. I was playing father with our firstborn that was one at the time. The final picture was the last time the 69 and 70 team met at our 20th year anniversary in 1990. I want to do a shout out to Wally Bourne for organizing our reunion and presenting Coach Bailey with a plaque as the top chief of all. It was awesome to see and talk to the coaches, players, and spouses after 20 years. I can't wait to see the folks after 50 years next year. The video was only made possible because of the excellent work of our public relations folks in preparing the booklet. So thank you once again to Howard, Val, Judy, and Carl. Here's Coach Bailey with some closing comments.
Winning may not be everything, and I agree with that, but it's important. You guys won. The 1971 team lost in the final. Very, very close game. And after that game, the kids couldn't believe it. But they actually, when I come down the hall, they stood through the door with the motivation. That's how hard it was for them. And you guys have been able to carry on. My father played on the 1919 McGill team, and all through my life, I heard everything about this 1919 McGill team. They used to get together, etc. So you really have something going for it. Thank you very much.
Well, creating this video was fun. As Chomedey Chiefs, we continue to cherish the memories that we've created, and glad we had the opportunity to share this video with you. I wish you all well, and thank you.